I never imagined that I would be packing my office on a gray Thursday morning in Seattle. I stood quietly in the room and looked at a simple cardboard box on my desk. Inside that box were the memories of the last 4 years of my life. The office around me used to feel like a dream come true. It was a big corner office with wide windows that showed the rainy city outside. I had worked very hard to earn that space. I had missed holidays with my family, worked late nights, and stayed awake through many long product launches. I had sat in many serious meetings and solved many difficult problems for the company. But now the office felt empty and strange. It almost felt like it belonged to someone else. "You have 30 minutes, Elowen," said Thatcher Crowell from the doorway. He stood there holding a black umbrella. Rainwater dripped from it onto the shiny floor. His voice sounded cold and distant, like this moment did not matter to him at all. "Seraphine will be stepping in as Vice President of Strategy immediately," he added. Seraphine. My cousin. The same Seraphine who never even finished college. She had spent years jumping from one hobby to another. 1 year she wanted to be a photographer. Another year she tried starting a clothing shop online. Then she tried becoming a travel blogger. None of it lasted very long. But 2 months ago she suddenly decided the technology world looked fun. And now she has my job. She had my office. And she got it because she was close friends with Ben's wife. I quietly placed one of my awards into the box. It was the Team Leader of the Year award. Next I placed the award for Best Performing Division. That award reminded me of all the nights my team and I had worked until morning to meet our goals. Then I picked up a special plaque. It celebrated the day our company raised $20 million in funding from investors. I remembered how proud everyone felt that day. Each award told a story about hard work, patience, and long hours. But now they were being pushed aside like they meant nothing. "Oh, and your badge," Ben said suddenly. He raised his eyebrow as he looked at me. "Security rules," he said. "We can't take any chances." I took the badge from my jacket and handed it to him calmly. My face stayed peaceful, but the corner of my mouth moved slightly. What he did not know was something very important. What no one at Crowell Tech knew. I owned the building. The building was not owned directly under my name. Instead, it belonged to a quiet company called Marlowe Ventures. The name came from my grandmother, Marlowe. And I was the owner of that company. "Of course," I said politely while closing my box. "But someone might want to review the lease agreement carefully. Marlowe Ventures sent a notice yesterday." Ben waved his hand like he did not care. "Seraphine can handle it," he said. "She's better with people than you ever were." If only he knew the truth. The notice was not about rent. It was about a special rule hidden inside the contract. The rule said that if the company broke important fairness laws, like firing someone unfairly because of family favoritism, the landlord could end the lease within 24 hours. And the landlord was me. I placed the final item into the box. It was an old photograph. In the picture I was 14 years old. I stood next to my grandmother in front of this same building before it was renovated and turned into modern offices. I could almost hear her voice again. "One day people will learn something," she used to say. "Real power is not about job titles or big offices. Real power is about ownership. It is about who holds the deed." When I was 17 years old, I had already learned a lot about building laws and zoning rules. I liked reading about how cities were planned and how buildings were owned. When I turned 21, I used the inheritance my grandmother left me to start a small company called Marlowe Ventures. Then, when I was 24, I quietly bought this building. Soon after that, I rented it to Crowell Tech at a very fair price. I did not need their money, but I believed that one day something like this might happen. "One more thing," Ben said as I lifted my box. "The severance package we talked about, the board decided it would be better used as part of Seraphine's signing bonus." He tilted his head and gave a fake, polite smile. "I'm sure you understand," he said. "Family comes first. Family first." I had heard those words many times in my life. When Seraphine had huge credit card bills she could not pay, my parents used the money saved for my college to help her. When Seraphine crashed her expensive Audi car and needed a new one right away, my parents bought it for her overnight. At that time, I was told I should be thankful just to have a bus pass. And when Seraphine decided she wanted my job, my parents called me. They spoke gently and reminded me that it would be selfish if I stood in her way. "Of course," I said calmly while walking past Ben. "Family first." The elevator ride down to the lobby was silent. But inside my mind, my thoughts were moving quickly. By now my lawyer, Kasia, had already received my message. She knew it was time. All the legal papers had already been prepared. By sunrise the next morning, Crowell Tech's legal department would receive an official eviction notice. The notice would explain that the company broke the lease agreement because of unfair dismissal, family favoritism, spreading false rumors, and creating a hostile workplace. And I had proof of everything. Every email, every meeting note, every whisper in the hallway, every complaint sent to human resources was ignored. When the elevator doors opened, I stepped into the lobby. There I saw Seraphine standing with Violetta Crowell. Violetta was Ben's wife. She wore a stylish pink blazer and stood proudly beside Seraphine. Seraphine smiled like she had just won a big prize. "Glad you're clearing out," Violetta said with a small sneer. "Seraphine wants to redesign the whole floor anyway. Your style was too cold." Seraphine gave a small shrug. "I'll take care of things, Elowen," she said softly. "I promise." She reached out to touch my arm, but I stepped back slightly. "Just like you took care of the story about me?" I asked calmly. Violetta rolled her eyes. "Oh, please, don't be so dramatic," she said. "It's just business. Just business. Just like when Seraphine hinted to people that I was emotionally unstable. Just like when she spread lies about me flirting with important clients. All lies. All part of her plan." "You're right," I said quietly. "It is just business." Outside, the rain had stopped, but the air still felt heavy. Like a storm was waiting nearby. I placed my box in the back seat of my silver sedan. It was not flashy or expensive, but it was mine. I looked at my reflection in the car window. I did not look like someone who had lost. I looked like someone who was about to win. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Kasia. "All documents signed. Notice will be delivered at 9 a.m. sharp." I typed back a single word. "Proceed." As I drove through the quiet streets of West Seattle toward my home, I thought about tomorrow. I imagined Ben's face when he realized that Crowell Tech had only 24 hours to leave the building. I imagined Violetta's shock when she discovered that the landlord they trusted was the same woman they had just fired. And Seraphine. She would soon realize that her shiny new office would be gone before she even had time to hang a single picture frame. But mostly I thought about my grandmother. "Real power does not come from the tallest tower," she used to say. "It comes from knowing the land under that tower belongs to you." When I reached my driveway, my house looked simple and quiet. Nothing about it suggested that I owned one of the most valuable commercial properties in the city. It was just a small house with a neat garden and a mailbox with my name on it. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Seraphine. "No hard feelings, right? You know it's just business. Family brunch on Sunday." I did not reply. There would be time later for fake smiles and polite conversations. Right now I have work to do. Inside the house, I walked straight into my home office. This was my real control center. It was not shiny or modern like the office I had just left behind. But it was better, because it was honest. On the desk sat the deed to the building. Beside it were the original documents that created Marlowe Ventures. Along the wall were binders filled with records. Each binder was carefully labeled and organized. Inside them were notes about every unfair meeting, every example of favoritism, and every complaint that had been ignored by the company. I opened my laptop. The first thing I did was schedule an email to every employee of Crowell Tech. It would be sent at exactly 8:55 in the morning. The email said, "Please be advised that due to unexpected circumstances, all staff should work remotely until further notice. Building access will be closed starting at 9 a.m. Next, I prepared a press release. Marlowe Ventures has terminated the lease agreement with Crowell Tech effective immediately due to serious ethical and contractual violations. Finally, I sent instructions to the building's security company. Change all access codes. Lock the building at exactly 9 a.m. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my mother. Seraphine explained everything. "We are disappointed in how you handled this." I stared at the message silently. Another message followed. "Why couldn't you just support your cousin?" I placed the phone face down on the desk. "Tomorrow they will understand. All of them. Success built on lies and manipulation is not real success. It is like rotten wood hidden under shiny paint." Outside, the Seattle rain began falling again. The drops tapped softly against my window as I finished preparing everything. In less than 24 hours, Crowell Tech would learn what happens when you underestimate the quiet person. The one who stays late. The one who says little. The one who watches everything carefully. They thought they were firing an employee. They did not realize they were waking up the landlord. And that landlord had spent 5 years preparing for this exact moment. Seraphine had no idea that some battles are already lost the moment you step onto the board. I closed my laptop and stood by the window, watching the rain slide down the glass. Tomorrow's forecast was simple. Stormy, with a 100% chance of consequences. The next morning, at exactly 8:30, I parked my car across the street from the Crowell Tech building. I held a warm cup of coffee and watched the morning begin. Employees walked toward the building laughing and talking. They had no idea what was about to happen. At 8:45 a.m., sleek black Audi pulled into the parking lot. Ben Crowell stepped out. Right behind him came Seraphine in a shiny rose-gold Tesla. They had clearly planned to arrive together for her big first day. At exactly 9 a.m., my phone buzzed again and again. Access codes changed. Entrance locked. Kasha appeared on video confirming that the eviction notice had been delivered to a very confused receptionist. From my car I watched everything unfold. Employees tried to open the doors. They found them locked. Security guards politely asked people to step back. Small groups began forming on the sidewalk. People took out their phones. Then everything changed. Ben rushed outside holding the eviction notice. His face showed shock and anger. He shouted into his phone, giving orders that no longer mattered. My phone started ringing. Ben Crowell. I let it go to voicemail. Then Seraphine called. I declined. She tried again. Declined. Then Violetta called. Declined. Finally a message appeared from Seraphine. What did you do? I calmly stepped out of my car. I straightened my jacket. Then I walked across the street toward the building. People began turning their heads. Quiet whispers started spreading through the crowd. Ben looked at me, and his eyes became narrow as he realized who I was. He was holding the eviction notice tightly in his fist, the paper slightly wrinkled from how hard he was gripping it. You, he said in a low, angry voice. Marlowe Ventures. It's you. I gave a small, calm smile. Good morning, Mr. Crowell, I said politely. I see you received the notice about the lease termination. Ben lifted the paper and shook it in the air. His face had turned bright red with anger. This is outrageous, he shouted. You can't just throw us out of this building. We have rights. Actually, I said calmly while opening my briefcase. I can. I took out a thick folder filled with papers and opened it slowly. Inside were many documents. I flipped to one page where a sentence had been highlighted in bright yellow. Clause 9, subsection B of your lease agreement, I said, pointing at the line. Ben frowned as he looked at it. This part clearly says that if a company breaks rules about honest and fair behavior, such as firing someone unfairly, giving jobs to family members without fairness, or spreading lies about workers, then the owner of the building has the right to end the lease immediately. I looked up at him. Would you like to see the documentation from when I was fired yesterday? Seraphine stepped forward quickly. But now she doesn't look as confident as before. Her face looked pale and nervous. This is just revenge, she said. You're only doing this because you're bitter that I got your job. Took my job. I let out a small dry laugh. Seraphine, you didn't take anything, I said. You worked with Violetta to spread rumors about me. You made up fake complaints. You convinced my parents to pressure me into stepping down. I paused for a moment. You even took the severance money that was meant for me. Then I slowly lifted my hand and pointed at the tall office building behind them. And now, I continued quietly, you've lost everything. No office. No title. No company address. At that moment Violetta pushed her way through the small crowd that had started gathering nearby. She looked less calm than usual. Ben, say something, she said nervously. She can't do this. But Ben wasn't listening to her. He had already taken out his phone and was talking quickly with someone. Most likely his lawyers. I watched him as he listened. At first he looked angry. Then I was confused. Then I was worried. Slowly his face fell. I already knew what they were telling him. The eviction was completely legal. And Marlowe Ventures had every right to enforce it. 24 hours, I announced loudly so everyone nearby could hear. That's how long Crowell Tech has to leave this building. Anything left behind after that will be considered abandoned property. Ben's voice cracked when he spoke again. You expect us to move an entire company in one day? He shouted. We have contracts. Clients. Equipment. I looked at him calmly. The same amount of time you gave me to clean out my office, I replied. I gave a small shrug. Nothing personal, remember? Just business. Suddenly Seraphine grabbed my arm tightly. Her eyes looked watery, like she might cry. You can't do this to me, Elowen, she said softly. I'm your family. I gently removed her hand from my arm. Exactly, I said. And you always told me that family comes first. So that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm protecting my real family. Marlowe Ventures. Around us, people were whispering. Some employees had gathered outside the building. A few of them were even recording the scene on their phones. But I didn't care. I had waited 5 long years for this moment. Oh, and one more thing, I added while pulling out another document from my folder. This is a formal notice that I am filing legal action against Crowell Tech. Ben looked shocked. For what? He asked. For defamation, workplace discrimination, and wrongful termination, I answered. Ben suddenly stepped toward me, his face full of fury. But Violetta quickly grabbed his arm to stop him. You'll regret this, Ben growled angrily. I'll bury you in court with endless lawsuits. I simply smiled. I'll see you there, I replied calmly. Inside my mind, I thought about everything I had done during the past 5 years. Every careless comment they had made. Every secret deal they had arranged. Every quiet whisper about unfair behavior. I had carefully documented everything. Every email. Every meeting recording. Every strange transaction. Every suspicious payment. I had saved it all. I'm actually looking forward to discovery, I said calmly. Ben's expression changed again. I'm sure the board will be very interested in the materials I've collected. That statement hit him hard, because he knew exactly what I was talking about. The questionable payments to vendors. The consulting money given to his golf friend. The complaints from employees that were hidden and ignored. The quiet pattern of unfair treatment and discrimination. All of it was ready to be revealed. I checked my watch. You have 23 hours and 45 minutes left, I said. I suggest you start packing. Then I turned and began walking away. Behind me, Seraphine called out in a shaky voice. What about Sunday brunch? She asked. Mom and Dad already made reservations. I paused for a moment. Then I turned my head slightly. Tell them I won't be there, I said. I'll be busy leasing the building to a new tenant. One that doesn't treat loyalty like it's a weakness. The next few hours were complete chaos. Large moving trucks lined the street outside the building. Employees rushed in and out carrying computers, chairs, and boxes. Some people looked angry. Some looked scared. Executives stood in small groups whispering and talking quickly on their phones. I watched everything from Cash's office across the street. While all this was happening, we were already receiving offers from new companies that wanted to rent the building. By midnight, Crowell Tech had mostly cleared out. I walked back into what used to be my office. Seraphine had left many things behind. My framed vision board was still hanging on the wall. Even the founder's quote of the month poster was still there. I stood by the window and looked out at the glowing lights of Seattle at night. My phone kept buzzing with messages. My mother texted, "How could you betray your cousin like this?" My father wrote, "We didn't raise you to be so vindictive." Seraphine sent another message, "You've destroyed everything." But one message made me stop and smile. It came from my grandmother. She had sent it from my late grandfather's old phone number. "He would be very proud of you," she wrote. "You are the only one who truly understands what real power means." The next morning, the news exploded with headlines. Andover Tech evicted in corporate scandal. Family feud turns into a business disaster. But my favorite headline said, Marlowe Ventures steps into the spotlight. The article talked about how our company had been quietly buying important properties across Seattle for years. The Crowell building was just one piece of a much larger plan. A week later, I received a dinner invitation. Not from my parents, but from my grandmother. When I arrived at her house, she was already sitting in her favorite chair. There was a bright spark in her eyes. "Your grandfather kept a journal," she said while handing me an old leather notebook. "He wrote about you many times. He believed you were the only one who truly understood his lessons about patience and power." I opened the notebook and saw his neat handwriting. One page caught my attention. "My granddaughter asked me today why I invest in old buildings instead of new ones," it said. I told her what my father once told me. Real value is not in what stands above the ground. The real value is owning the ground itself. She understood. Let's see how far that girl goes. I blinked slowly, trying not to cry. Seraphine called me. My grandmother said while pouring tea. "She's moving away. She says she can't find work here anymore." I nodded quietly. Earlier that day I had received an email from a large technology company. They wanted to lease the building. Their plan was to turn the lower floors into a startup incubator. New entrepreneurs could rent small office spaces there and receive mentorship and support. "Your grandfather always said something important," my grandmother continued. Revenge is a poor man's game. Real success isn't about hurting people back. It's about moving forward and helping others succeed too. I smiled softly. It was never about revenge, I said quietly. It was about justice. And now it's about building something better. Later that night, as I drove home, I passed the building that once carried the Crowell Tech name. The sign had been removed. Only clean glass remained. It was like a blank page waiting for a new story. My phone buzzed again. It was a message from Seraphine. Her first message in weeks that wasn't angry or defensive. I understand now, she wrote. What you built, and how hard you worked for it. I'm sorry I tried to take it from you. I never realized how much effort it took. I didn't reply immediately. Some truths take time to settle. Some apologies need more than just words. But as I parked in my driveway and stepped out under the cloudy Seattle sky, I thought again about my grandfather's lesson. True power isn't about having the biggest office. It's about owning the ground beneath everyone's feet. And finally, everyone understood.